hear how you started playing golf?
Yeah, it was actually pretty random. I was not into golf at all until about 10 or 11. My brother, I was big at baseball. I played all the sports as a kid. But my brother got a job at Meadow Lake. We all know Meadow Lake. I mean, it's a local Escondido place. You got to go there. So he was picking the range, doing the carts, and they allowed me to hit balls for free. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. It's kind of like my mom's like, get out of the house, go. It's summertime, just get away from me, basically. But they allowed me to practice and play there because he worked there, and I helped out. And then eventually I started picking the range there. So I picked it up pretty late for most people. 10 to 12 is kind of late. Normally these kids are 6 to 8 and they're going to camps now, and they're doing, some of these parents are shipping their kids off to do full deals to where it's school involved, kind of like a tennis camp, like a voluntary, like that kind of feel, these Ledbetter camps. But, mine was a little old school direction. I started a little later. And to be honest, where I really started getting into it was high school, because I was a big baseball player. And then when I got into high school, I was like, man, we're 90 feet. This guy has a mustache. I'm like, what is this? Like, I'm just hitting like dingers in Little League, and like everything is great. So, I didn't grow. I was smaller. I was 5'2" when I was a freshman. So, and baseball and golf were the same time. So I kind of had a little crossroad there, and that was where I had to make a decision. So I actually played football, golf, and basketball my first year.
So, I'm picturing you on the range as an 11, 12-year-old kid, your older brother's on the course. Like, did you have lessons? Was anybody teaching you how to swing, or did you just sort of figure it out?
To be honest, not really. Not till I was about like 15. That was when I started getting really serious about golf. Like my junior, senior year, that was all I focused on. That was the only sport I played. But yeah, I didn't really do the lesson route. I'm a field player, and we can get into that later with the coaching and how I went with my path and everything. But I wasn't like a video camera guy. I wasn't. I was just an old school kind of dig it out of the dirt kind of kid.
Yeah, and like Goodwill Hunting, where Will just says like some people can just play. You could just play.
It's like you don't need to do this for me. You just for this guy. This guy can't do this, and you can.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of my path is definitely different than a lot of other people, but there's so many ways to do it. That's what's the great thing about golf. Yeah. And people can do it in their 50s and their 60s, and there's so many great things about golf and how they correlate with business and growing up and understanding people and relating and relationships. And I don't know, it fascinated me because I got to go practice whenever I wanted to. I didn't have a coach. I had teammates in high school, but you're on your own. You're like, all right, if I'm going to go hit 407 irons, I'm going to go hit 407 irons. There's only so many times you can, in your case, you can't, hey, Williams, let's go pass block each other like on the side. It's like, it doesn't really work like that. So I found this little niche of like, okay, if I work harder than someone else on my own, I feel like I can do this.
And was it your competitive drive there? I mean, you're in a situation where you're good, you're good, and you just, being the competitor you are, you just wanted to keep practicing and keep getting better.
Yeah. I think I really realized it when I got, like I said, junior, senior in high school, where I was like, okay, I think I can get a college scholarship for this. I was starting to win some junior tournaments. I was the best player in high school. But I wasn't highly recruited. I wasn't a national player. I was just a really good local player. So I kind of had to test myself a little bit. I was recruited like softly by USC and Pepperdine and San Diego State, but Long Beach, they took a liking to me, and for some reason, they're like, hey, if you come here, you're starting right away, full scholarship. I'm like, I'm in. That was my ultimate goal, was to play some type of college sport. I never saw myself as going on and being a professional athlete and do that when I was that age. It started obviously progressing, and I'm like, man, starting to get pretty good at this. I can maybe do this for a job.
What did that happen in college? Like when you got to Long Beach, were you just like, you know what, I could do this professionally?
Yeah, I think it was about my sophomore year. It seems like that's like the trend right around high school. You figure it out when you're a sophomore, and then for me, it was college sophomore. I was like, I didn't know how good I was because I didn't know the players that well, to be honest, when I got to college. And then I got there, I was pretty highly ranked for a smaller school. I wasn't a great player, but I was top 50 in the country. So I was like, okay, maybe I can pursue this later. But I didn't know anything about professional golf or the path or anything. I was like, how do I do this?
Who were your contemporaries at the time? You know, the guys that you were kind of looking up to that were playing at some of the other schools.
Oklahoma State was like the cream of the crop then, and UNLV, like Charlie Hoffman was the man. He was the guy. He was from San Diego. That we played junior golf together. He was 4 years older, but he won state twice. And then when I got to the college ranking, it was Charles Howell. That guy was unbeatable. He was one of those guys that went to those camps when he was 6. He went to Ledbetter School, and that was his school, and that was his job. That's what he did. So totally different paths, but somehow we end up in the same spot.
So you're finishing up at Long Beach. You're top 50 in the country in college. Everyone wants to give it a shot. Did anybody say you were crazy for thinking you could play pro golf at that time?
I mean, pretty much everybody. But the beautiful thing about golf, which is totally different than every other sport, is like all these other sports have drafts, or you get however like football or basketball, or it's like baseball. I went 6th round. Or golf is like literally you just put your money up and go play. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go play this mini tour event in Texas. I pay my $1,000. I pay for my hotel, pay for my food, and then at the end of the week, hopefully you break even. It was kind of one of those things where you're on your own. It's pretty cool because anyone can do it, but it's a little skewed because a lot of people think they can do it, and but that's why it's so cool. And then you have Q School, and then you have anyone can enter. If you want, you can turn pro tomorrow. If you enter a tournament, you're probably not gonna make money, but you can enter the tournament.
So was it a situation where, coming out of, Escondido, you weren't on the radar from the junior golf perspective. You go to a smaller school, not a smaller school, but you're not at Oklahoma State, or you're not at UNLV. You have a good college career. Now you're going to go ahead and try to become a professional and get on the mini tours. Was it one of those, like, you always had the talent and you just were not able to show it yet, or you just hadn't got on the national spotlight? Or was there a big jump in your ability to play when you got to the mini tours?
So there was another crossroad where I was actually thinking about this last night about kind of going through the whole thing. When I turned pro, I got in my car and I drove to Texas. That was the best place to play the mini tours. So it was actually me and Steve Mena. We jumped in my car, drove out, and it was one of those things where you pay your money and see how it goes. The first year went awful. I lost like $20,000. My parents fronted me, and I'm like, now I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm 23 years old. What do I do? I kind of gave it a shot. And I remember driving back. I was actually there's an event in Stockton, so I drove from Dallas to Stockton straight through the night. I only had a 1-day break. And I finished 3rd, and I made like $6,000. I'm like, all right, I'm alive again. I'm back. I'm kind of doing, I feel good. I'm doing my thing. And that was kind of the boost for me. I then, like that next summer, I started working with Jamie Mulligan, who's been a huge asset for me. I finished 2nd at Long Beach Open. I made like $20,000. I'm like, man, I am loaded, But now I'm starting to get confidence in myself. I'm starting to believe that I can do this on a different stage. So it's, golf is like, you got junior golf, you got college golf, and then you got pro golf. And you're on your own on this journey. You may have a caddy, but at that stage, you're on your own. You got your family and you got phone calls, So that was kind of the turning point of like, all right, I think I can do this. And this is probably like 2006. I went to the Canadian Tour Qualifier and I won that one. So now I'm on a real golf tour where I'm in Canada. I'm traveling. Now I got to pick up sponsors. It's a whole different deal. It's so now I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I got to find money to go play this tour now. Just because I got on this tour doesn't mean I'm all of a sudden making money. I just have the availability to play these tournaments. So I got to go out and fundraise myself. So this is where I met John Kruger, who, as you know, was one of the sole providers of TravisMathew. That's kind of where my whole life completely changed. He was willing enough to sponsor me and give me the opportunity to go play Monday qualifiers for the PGA Tour and the web.com. And eventually I played my way on. He didn't want any money back. He kind of gave me a free pass, and it was life-changing, to be honest.
And is that about the time you got the nickname Monday Mally?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I either top 25 or I qualified for like 7 or 8 in a row. And I gained my card that way, which is, pretty hard to do back in the day. So then that next winter is when I got my PGA Tour card.
Yeah. So you started working with Jamie, and you mentioned that he was, sort of a big part of the evolution of your game. And you really worked with Jamie. I mean, probably still to this day. I mean, occasionally would check in with him, I would assume.
Yeah, he 1,000% kickstarted my career as far as the golf side.
So my question with Jamie is, because obviously you could always play. You're a field player. Your swings, what your swing is. What did Jamie help you with? Was it the mental side of it?
He helped me with understanding how my swing worked. So under the gun, this is why you do certain things. He's like, I don't want to change too much. This is what you do really good, and this is what you do really bad. But when you're nervous, you tend to do this. And so it's like, that was the stuff we practiced all the time. And so I guess you could say mentally, but yeah, a little bit of the physical side that I really needed when I got nervous. Everyone has tendencies, especially in golf. Either your hands get really fast, whatever the case is. So he kind of gave me a program, and I never really had that before. I never had someone to guide me. And so, him being around the PGA Tour, understanding how to prepare for events, how to eat, how to train a certain way for golf. I know that sounds crazy, but there is some type of training for golf, especially now. It's totally different level than when I was actually out there playing. But more, I would say, just getting my program fit for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're at that age where you obviously your professional career and I'm sure much of college, Tiger Woods was already on the scene, and Tiger completely changed the game of golf. I think we'd all agree on that. But you started playing golf kind of right before Tiger became Tiger, so it wasn't quite the cool thing to do yet. And maybe people didn't realize that these really are athletes. Like how was that sort of transition of golf from maybe when you first started playing to obviously where golf is today?
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, I always play other sports. And so I kind of took those into golf. I would say mentally, I probably made it in golf because of my mental side from these other sports, understanding just that side of the game it's so intense and so heavy that as you played college sports, it's just part of the game. You can be one of the best physically athlete, but if you're not there mentally, it's not going to work. But nowadays, these guys have trainers, they have therapists, they have a team of 5 per tournament. I would have a team of 5 back then, which was kind of rare because I invested like in my body and myself, and which was tough because I just started making money and I got to invest in my team. But that's what made my money. Now these guys have it per week. I was having it per year. It's a totally different game now. These guys are training in a different way. I don't believe in a lot of it. The Bryson thing, obviously he's a fantastic player. He's pretty much a Hall of Famer, but his body's going to break down. There's no way he's on the path to where it can't. I look at someone like a McIlroy, who that guy is going to play for 50 years if he wants and still perform at the highest level because of the way his body moves. A lot of that's naturally, but it's a lot of the way he trains too. He's lean, he's super fit, but he can go hit balls for 3 hours and be fine.
Which is interesting because he has a very aggressive swing too. I mean, there's a ton of club head speed when that guy swings a club.
Yeah, it's just the way his body moves. He's got a gift there for sure.
Yeah.
Because I remember back in the day, I played, I think it was like 2008 or 2009. I played PGA Championship with him, third round. And he was this little fat kid from Ireland. I'm like, who is, and his hair is sticking out. And I'm like, this guy is like 10 in the world. Like, what's going on? You know, and I'm in great shape for a golfer at the time. I'm like, I can take this guy. And all of a sudden his body just like spinning like I've never seen it before. So, you know, there is some natural stuff that comes with it, but there are also now he's actually training for golf. And I don't know, that guy impresses me.
Yeah, no, he's a stud. And it's good. I think golf's just better when he's playing well. It was good to see him. Good to see him win this week. Yeah, they showed a picture, before the final round. Obviously, him and Fowler are sort of battling going into that. And they show some picture of them when they're both, I don't know, probably junior golfer, 18, 19 years old. And Rory, the body transformation on that guy is unbelievable. You're right. He was like a pudgy little kid with just a ton of talent.
I was like, there's no way this guy's beating me, but he steps on the first tee and just smokes him like 320 down, like high draw. And I'm like, oh boy, like I don't want to have that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We've talked about this before. I mean, you hit the ball well, obviously. I think, you hit the ball as far as, a lot of people do, but you're not Rory, right? I mean, very few people are, but we've had this conversation in the past where, and I forgot who you were comparing yourself to. It might've been somebody you had played with in college or someone who had played at another college. And you made a comment to the extent of that guy right there has way more talent than I have, but he'll never make it on tour because and maybe this goes back to the Monday Malley thing. When it comes to staring down an 8-foot slider to make a putt to qualify for a PGA Tour event, I get up there and I know I'm going to make it. And he goes up there and he's hoping not to miss it. Right. And talk to me a little bit about that because I'm fascinated by the mental side of these things. My sport that I played in, we didn't have to deal with that. Like I wasn't a quarterback. I think quarterbacks deal with that, but like it's all reactive. I don't have time. I never had time. Once the ball was snapped, it's all reactive. I never had time to sit there over the ball and get in my own head and think about what's going to happen and think about the process. And I think what makes the greats versus, the not so greats is those people that can just shut their mind off. You've done it. What goes through your mind in those situations?
I think that's the coolest part about golf. I kind of that's why it separates from a different sport. It's the ball is sitting still. You're out there for 5 hours by yourself, and you got to figure it out. It's like, if someone's gonna throw your football, your hands are gonna move, your eyes are gonna react, your brain's gonna react to your hands. You're gonna catch. This ball's just sitting there, not moving. You're like, okay, I got to get this in that hole 500 yards away. That's the size of a cup. It's super fascinating. So it's for me, I knew a lot of the times that when I was with a certain person, especially when I was coming up, that I could beat them mentally. Physically, I honestly didn't care because golf is so mental when it really comes down to it. If I could stay in that right frame of mind, then I knew I could be there at the end. I'm not always going to win, but like, that's another thing. You don't win in golf. If you win 3 times a year, you're player of the year. You were the best player in the world 3 times. Like, and like, you don't have teammates. It's just a totally different perspective of competing, and one thing that I always thought of, and I don't know why this stuck in my head when I was going through the PGA Tour and there was this moment, and you probably know this. When Matt Barnes was throwing in the ball and Kobe Bryant's right in front of his face and he gives him that pump fake, he didn't move. And I'm like, I want to be that guy, And so I always had some type of vision or something like that, to where I was always trying to be something like that. Whether I did or not, that was my goal. That kind of Mamba mentality, or, I feel like I look around, Tiger Woods had that, Kobe had that, all these great athletes, Wayne Gretzky, those are the guys that I kind of look to. I never thought I could be them, but I was trying to be like, okay, what do those guys do that it's that much better? So I try to take little bits and pieces of kind of all sports, not just golf, because Tiger was so dominant. Like, he literally changed the entire game, which I've never seen since I'm 42 years old. I've never seen it happen in another sport ever. And it could be because of his color. It could be because of his physical ability. It could be a combination of everything, but he literally changed the sport. He went from he came out in 96, purses were $250,000. In 97, they were $800,000. It's like, wow. Like, if anyone should be sending wine to people, it'd be Tiger Woods, especially me. Like, he literally made my life.
He did. So speaking of, making your life in transition, I think the story behind TravisMathew is really interesting as well. Obviously one of the co-founders of that company, probably anybody out there listening, is either owned or is possibly wearing some TravisMathew gear to this day. I think this t-shirt's a TravisMathew shirt. So, truly, is something that has just become part of our culture. You got involved in that company pretty early in your career, and you really took a big bet on those guys, right? I mean, maybe tell everybody kind of the story there.
I did. It was probably, looking back, I never bet that much again, but it worked out great. I was 27 years old. I was not married. I was my first year on tour. We had just came up with this idea. It was my roommate and I. He was the one that came up with the design. He was done playing golf. And then we kind of brought it together with the right people as far as financially. And it was just a brand. It was a brand. It was a lifestyle brand. We were trying to take golf. The bottom line was, we wanted you to wear the golf shirt to the golf course and then go to a bar and not feel like you're wearing a golf shirt. Like, that's what it kind of came down to. Like, you had the long sleeves with the pastel colors. And so our first line was a world of black and white. That was like our logo. And so basically, after my first year on tour, I actually wore Paul Frank my first year. I was trying to go a little different route already in my head, as far as like different, just to stand out. It's better for marketing dollars, whatever, however you want to look at it. And then once TravisMathew came involved and they wanted to be part of it, I was like, absolutely, this is right up my alley. And I had helped with the design. I helped with all the players that came in, just feedback. I was on the board. It was very cool to see, like, just the whole thing develop. Like I said, it was my first year on tour. It was like a third of my money at the time. So I was obviously very comfortable with, I was thinking I was going to play well and keep making all this money. And for some reason, I made a bet and it hit.
and I mean, it was, having spent, a career in business and seeing a lot of companies and a lot of startups. I mean, that hit about as, big as any company I've seen, and not necessarily just from a monetary perspective, but truly like a vision of, we want to change golf apparel. We want it to go away from these baggy, pleated, ugly pastel pants. And we want something cool, something that like, that you obviously can wear out, but you can kind of feel good about wearing on the course. And it's like, you guys had that vision. You got involved, obviously your relationships and what you did and your ability to design and create relationships on tour and get different players involved in wearing it. But it completely changed the golf apparel industry as a whole. And in many cases, I think you could make an argument that it changed business casual as a whole, because I saw it professionally. That's what people started to wear to work on a daily basis.
Yeah. Like that started to become the Friday outfit, And that was honestly like, that's what we saw. That's what we wanted. And that's what I know they're still striving to do. But it also took the right amount, the right people and the right team to kind of make that happen, you know. And it was nice for me because when I came off of golf on my off week, I would get to go in there. I'd go sit in the meetings. I'd get to learn a little bit of the business side that I didn't know much about. I was a golfer. I was trying to get a ball in the hole, but learning how these people were thinking, you know, where their goals were. And the cool thing about that business is everything is pre-booked. So you're 6 to 9 months out of all your new stuff is already out, and people don't know about it, you know, and it's already sold. So you get to see a vision of, you know, all these people come together, and it was awesome. It was like one of the best things I've ever been part of, as far as seeing it develop.
You know, one of the things that you guys did a fantastic job about, and you mentioned it earlier, is you built a lifestyle brand. And, you know, saying you want to build a lifestyle brand is one of those kind of cliche things a lot of companies set out to do. But you guys truly, you built a lifestyle brand. There's absolutely no doubt about that. What was the thought process? Like, what were those meetings like when you were sitting back thinking about things like buying the bus or, you know, whatever it might be?
Honestly, like our first biggest purchase was like, okay, we're gonna buy this $500,000 bus, and we're gonna take it around. We're gonna go to member guests, and we're gonna make it a blast. You know, that company likes to have a good time, and so it's like you get the right people there, you get the right flow. That's actually what people want. That they want the experience. They want, you know, I wouldn't say it's like taking a bar to a golf course, but it's like you're creating an area that everyone's comfortable with. And it's like, man, this is so much fun. It's like, and I can still play golf in this. This is great. You know, this is what I want. Like, you start making backpacks, and you start making socks and underwear and hats, and, you know, stuff that's not just a baggy golf shirt. I think that was the biggest change, is we started to make things not just golf. We're making beach towels, we're making coffee mugs, so it was a whole transition. And to be honest, a lot of the things I was like, guys, this is not going to work. Like, this is so out of our area. But they were willing to take that gamble, because they saw that vision, they saw that lifestyle that these guys actually wanted in their own life, you know. And I was on the tour side, getting the players, giving the feedback of the quality of the shirts, and the how it works in 90 degrees and how it works in 70 degrees and stuff like that. But they really had the vision of, this is what they really wanted in their life.
And you guys had a knack early on for getting other tour guys involved right before they like became real big, right? Like I remember Bubba, like, is a good example of that. Like, you got Bubba on before he started winning Masters and the whole bit.
I mean, you can call it luck, but we had 25 wins in whatever 10 years or something. So I think it was a combination of me kind of having the inside of the PGA Tour and letting these guys know, hey, these guys are coming up. They're really good dudes. They're going to fit the style, and they're really good players. To be honest, Bubba was an outside pick. It came from an agent. I had nothing to do with that. But when he won the Masters, it changed our brand. I mean, it really did. It was that one shot of the trees where he hooked that 8-iron on number 10, and that he was wearing that TravisMathew collar right there, and it just stuck, you know. And obviously, he's a super marketable person, so it worked out. It just worked out great. It was one of those things where right time, right place.
You guys recently got acquired by Callaway. How did that thought process go down? I mean, were you a part of that? Were you a part of those conversations?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was about, I think it was almost 4 years ago now, 3 years ago. So that was right at the end of my career as far as golfing. It's kind of weird how that worked. I played 8 or 9 years on the tour, and then I got hurt, and then a couple of years on the web afterwards. But I remember getting that phone call, and I was playing actually a web event in Northern California, and I never checked my phone ever during a golf round, but I knew this was happening. I was like, I gotta be checking my phone. So I actually checked my phone. And I've never done this before ever, but I actually walked off the golf course. I was like, I just sold, or not me. We just sold TravisMathew. These guys are in Tahoe. I'm walking off. I'm going to hang out with them.
I haven't heard this story before. This is amazing.
It was a Friday. It was like the 12th hole, and I'm kind of refreshing my phone, and I'm like even par. I'm not close to competing. I finally get this text, and it's this full newsletter about how Callaway has bought us, and I'm like, you know what? I've never done this before, but I feel like this is the right time to do this. I'm gonna walk up. I'm gonna say my back is hurt, and I'm gonna drive to Tahoe, and I'm gonna have some fun with these guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that was a lot of fun, I think, for everybody and everybody around it. So, one of the things that's really interesting, and we've had conversations about this offline, is, we talk to other athletes, other professional athletes, and sport ends for everybody, right? It ends in college, it ends in the pros. Some people it's ends in high school, whatever it is. But typically, when it's done, right? Like our buddy Brian Russell, like 10 years in the NFL, never going to wear a helmet or shoulder pads again. But you're in a situation where I guess you're semi-retired. You still go back and you play the Pebble Beach Invitational, an event that you won earlier in your career. You at any given time really could go do a Monday qualifier, and if you really wanted to, you could go full like nose to the grindstone and work to get back on tour. Senior tours, still a long ways away, but something that's in your sights. Like, what's that thought process like for you? And I guess my specific question is, when you do jump back kind of in between the ropes, like you're going to play the Pebble Beach Invitational, what's it like to be a pro again, even if it's just for a weekend?
It's a lot harder than it used to be. that week is pretty fun. So it's pretty enjoying. My wife comes up, we get to spend the week at Spanish Bay. But that's the time where the juices start flowing again. You start getting those feelings again. But I know how much it takes, and I know how much it really, really takes to be at the PGA Tour level. And currently in my life and my lifestyle, I got, 2 boys that are 8 and 5. And I kind of decided to just step away from that, because I realized how selfish I'd have to be to play the PGA Tour. Do I feel like I can do it? Maybe. I honestly, I probably think I could do it again. But in my mind, it's like, I'm just doing that for myself. Financially, we're okay. Everything is all good. So if I go and play again and I try to win a PGA Tour event, that's strictly for me. Like, they'll get 20 seconds of joy of seeing me on TV and it's all over. But they don't see the Monday through Wednesday. They don't see the 32 weeks a year. They don't see the training. They don't see the mental side. They don't see the peaks and valley of actually what the sport does to you. So in that case, if I was 50 years old, and my boys are set in high school, that would be an ultimate dream for me. But it's got to be a right fitting for everybody. It's got to work out for my wife. It's got to work out with my kids. Everyone's got to be on board, because I know a lot of these guys and how they work is next level, man. They're cutthroat, and they're willing to sacrifice a lot of things that I actually get to do now. So I kind of look at it a different way than maybe some people.
I know, because of being out there at Virginia Country Club and still being close with Jamie, you've had a chance to work with a lot of the young golfers that are now on tour that you see winning on a week in, week out basis. And have been a mentor to a lot of these younger guys who are now, seeing the success. When you think about, working with some of these younger guys coming up, what are some of those words of wisdom, or what's some of that advice that you gave them early on that hopefully that they've internalized and have helped them in their own careers?
Yeah, it's been a pretty unique spot over there, and that's something that he's really developed a nice culture over there. With Patrick Cantlay, Luke List went through there, Max Homa, and these guys have had trusted him and his process, and so I think the biggest thing that I think I've helped with is just the same thing as believing in yourself and believing in what you're doing and believing in the steps. You can't fake it around. It's just like any other professional sport. You can't fake it. You got to go through the process. It sounds so cliche, but it's like one shot at a time. Like just and these kids are 23 to 27, so be as selfish as you can. Like make decisions that are only gonna improve your golf. That was kind of the thing that went through my head. Everything. Hey, come to this party. Well, is this gonna help my golf? Probably not. Okay. Hey, let's go to dinner. Okay. Well, where is it? What are we doing? How long have we been there? And that's something that Patrick is, I would say, the best at maybe in the world. He is so in tune with himself and his body and his mind that like this kid's gonna be unstoppable. He has that killer instinct and that mindset to be the best player in the world.
Yeah, he's been fun to watch. So with your background, obviously being on tour, you had a lot of success there. You did well from a money perspective, and then being one of the co-founders of TravisMathew, taking that company from really conception and idea to an eventual exit to Callaway. I'm sure you're approached all the time by people with business ideas, looking at you, come invest, come do this, come do that. How do you handle that? How do you evaluate a good idea from a bad idea, or just a deal with people that are coming to you looking for you as an investor?
Yeah, and I honestly, that's a great question. I think this is probably like it sounds crazy, but this is probably the hardest part of my life. I did hit my home run per se, and now it's like, okay, now I got to kind of decide where do I go with my money to protect my family in the future, and what do I do with my time, and how do I make the most of what I'm doing now? So the first thing I did was about a year after TravisMathew sold, I wanted to start a foundation. So I started a tournament called The Give, John Mallinger Charitable Foundation, and I was like, how can I utilize a lot of these relationships that I built along the way, and how can I make money for people that need it? So I started a tournament. I got 18 tour guys to come to my event every single year. I'm super proud of that, because these guys it takes a lot of their time. They don't have this time. They're doing this because of the relationship that I have with them, and we're friends. It's not like, oh man, that seems like a lot. Like they're like, oh dude, I'm in. Like let me know. And along the way, I help these guys with their pro-ams, and it kind of works that way in that field. So it's probably like one of the proudest things that I've done personally is, we've raised over $700,000 in 3 years. I'm having it again in February. I got all the guys committed already. It's so that part is super fulfilling for me. The golf is cool. The TravisMathew thing is amazing, but like this part for me is cool because I get to give back to the community. I get to give back to Long Beach State. I get all the things that helped me along the way through the process of getting where I am now. So I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody's out there listening, where can they find more information about The Give?
They can go on the Instagram page, or it's super select little thing. So you can reach out to me anytime, or you can find on Instagram or email or whatever it is. But it's been a pretty cool community in Long Beach. They've really come together, and we've created this pretty cool tournament that it's exclusive, and people want to be part of it. It's pretty cool.
It's amazing. I mean, $700,000 raised that's a significant amount of cash. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you think about, just sitting around, watching the tour, kind of, having conversations, what's the product or service you think the golf industry is missing right now?
Man, I think U.S. golf is flying off the charts right now. I think you have guys like Justin Thomas, Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, DJ Bro. I mean, you look at U.S. golf and it's so strong right now. When you take Dustin Johnson, he's the oldest player in the Ryder Cup. That's when you know golf is good. I never thought that it could get like where it was with Tiger. I don't think it's quite there yet because he was so dominant individually. But as a team, I think it might be there.
It really is in a lot of ways. It is like the promise of, I think, what a lot of people thought would happen when Tiger became Tiger, right? It was all these kids grew up playing golf, from 3, 4 years old, and the coaches, and working with the psychologists and the teams. And I mean, you're right, like the skill level of the golfers today. And I mean, you look around and they all have individual swings, but the swings are just so tight and so good and technically so sound. It's good. I feel, what I feel bad for? I feel bad for that really good junior golfer that's 8, 9, 10 now, that's going to end up being a +7 and isn't going to be able to sniff the tour.
I mean, it's heading that direction. It's these guys they're just so dialed in. And they're learning it so much faster than when I did. When I was coming out, like I said, Charles Howe was like the best. He was amazing. He Monday qualified on the PGA Tour and kept his card. That's like impossible. Now these guys are doing that. There's 5, 6 guys a year now. Like they're coming out of college and they're ready to win on the tour immediately. And that's where I've really seen a difference, is the depth of the PGA Tour. When I was playing, guys from 50 to 125, they were good, but they weren't great. Now you have 100 great players. So every single week you're gonna see different winners. You're gonna see different moves. It's really cool to see that, and it all comes back to Tiger. Everything comes back to Tiger. Tiger changed the entire game. This wouldn't happen without him, and I think a lot of people need to understand that.
Yeah, it was good to see some of those videos of him back out on the golf course, just watching his son play. And we'll see what happens with him and all that, but I think everybody would just love to see that guy, back out there playing professional golf again.
I would. I mean, I'm a Tiger fan and I compete against him. I when he's playing the Masters, I'm watching 100%. It's nothing's better than Tiger Woods in the Masters. It's like one of those things where everybody's tuned in. He has that electricity. He has that spotlight, and he owns it. He's the guy that's sitting and a lot of the people don't know this, like the mental side that Tiger brings against other players. Like there's little things he'll do where he's put it out already, and the other guy's got like a 4-footer. And there's a backside of a green, he'll stand up there like he's the king, and he'll sit there and stare and watch. And everybody behind him is there for Tiger. And it's like, right, this is my golf tournament. You better make this putt.
I love that. All those stories, man. And I feel like Michael Jordan, there's, that doc came out on him, and there's so many of those little stories, just these little mind games they play to get in people's head.
And that's the greatest part about the sport, and that's why he was so good. Obviously his physical level was off the charts, but he had that cutthroat mentality of you got to come beat me. I've already got this one. Like I don't know how you're going to do it, but bring it on.
So if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, that's tough. There's not a lot of things I regret as far as the golf side. I feel like I maximize a lot of the stuff that I did. I would probably say to take it a little bit more easy on myself. I was really hard on myself when things were not going well. There's always the next week. There's always another tournament. And when you're in the moment, it's really hard to explain it to someone. Like, that 4-footer doesn't really matter, but in your mind, it's the only thing that matters. So I would probably just say to maybe back down a touch, but I also see the other side of, that's why I was super competitive and maybe made it. So it's,